A new poll shows Joe Biden leading President Trump by 8 points in the key battleground state of Michigan. An NBC News Marist poll shows 52% of likely voters support Biden to the president's 44%. Mr. Trump won Michigan in 2016 by less than 1 percentage point. The latest CBS News battleground tracker shows the state leaning Democrat. This comes as a legal fight ramps up in the state over absentee voting. Just yesterday, a judge granted the Republican-controlled legislature the right to appeal a court decision that allows the state to count absentee ballots for 14 days after the election. The state does not plan to appeal. Michigan Attorney General Dana Nessel joins me now with more. Thank you so much for joining us. First of all, why aren't you appealing the decision to count late ballots?
Well, for a number of reasons. Firstly, because we think it's important that the voters in our state have some sense of finality. You know, early voting is already underway in our state. So people are voting right now. People tend to think of the election as being on November 3rd, but it's really not. The election is happening already. So people need to know what the rules are, and they need that information as quickly as possible. Secondly, it seemed like an issue of fundamental fairness. On one hand, here, you know, I'm participating in these lawsuits nationally where we, have alleged that the United States Postal Service deliberately intended to slow down the mail specifically for the purpose of disenfranchising voters. And so on one hand, we're making those arguments, but on the other hand, of course, we're defending the state. And the argument by the plaintiffs is that their votes weren't going to count because the ballots would be received too late. And so they could not be counted for the November 3rd election. And in fact, what we know happened during the course of the primary was that there was some 6,000 or more votes that came in the day or two after the election, and they couldn't be counted. So we anticipate at least twice as many people that would happen to for the general election. And that is less than the margin of victory for which Trump won the state in 2016. So those votes are incredibly important.
So are you concerned at all that the extra 14 days could impact the time it takes to certify results?
Well, I will say this. We are trying to do everything we can here in Michigan to recruit as many poll workers as possible to ensure that this crush of absentee ballots is counted as quickly as possible. So our hope is that we will have the vast majority of votes already counted in time for certification, if not all of them, of course, so that there really won't be an issue. And even if your ballot has to be postmarked by November 2nd, hopefully, of course, all of those ballots will be received in time to be counted before the certification of the vote, which of course is 14 days after the election. So we anticipate that every vote will be counted by then, even if the law stays in place as it will be under the ruling of the Court of Claims judge, who ruled that those votes could still count as long as the ballot was postmarked by November 2nd.
As you know, a lot of folks are trying to figure out what might happen in various scenarios. So let me ask you, what happens if the results are not certified by the time the Electoral College needs to vote?
Well, I'm not going to speculate because I don't see that happening. And I know there's a number of doomsday scenarios that, my department will be prepared for in the event any of them actually occur. But the thing is, I don't want to scare voters. I don't want them to think that there is actually a likelihood or even a real possibility that could occur. As it's always occurred in the state of Michigan, is that the Electoral College and the electors have voted for whoever won the popular vote in our state. That has always been the case in the state of Michigan. And as far as I'm concerned, that is what will also occur in 2020. So a lot of these concerns that we hear out there, my concern is that it is either misinformation or disinformation that is intentionally being disseminated in order to scare people away from voting or to make people think that their vote isn't going to count because it doesn't matter who wins. Somebody else will end up getting the electoral votes, and that's just not the case. Whoever wins the popular vote in Michigan will get all 16 of our Electoral College votes.
And I'm curious, Attorney General, how are you planning on voting this year? Is it by mail?
Yeah, I voted absentee for the first time in our primaries in Michigan. In 2018, we passed a no-reason absentee voting law. It was for the first time. So I voted absentee from the safety and security and the comfort of my own home. And I plan to do the same. We are encouraging people to vote by 2 weeks before the election date, just to make sure that their vote gets to their local clerk's office. And if not, to drop it off at a drop box, or even to go right into your local clerk's office and vote. Any of those ways, it doesn't matter, your vote is still going to count. Or if you choose to vote on November 3rd, we're doing everything we can here in Michigan to make the polls as safe as possible. Everyone will be wearing masks, and we'll have plenty of disinfectant. Everybody will be socially distant from one another. So any way you do it, your vote will be safe, it'll be secure, and your vote is going to count.
On another topic, during Tuesday night's debate, President Trump had this to say when pressed about waiting until after the election to fill the vacant seat left by Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg. Let's go ahead and take a listen.
I will tell you very simply, we won the election. Elections have consequences. We have the Senate, we have the White House, and we have a phenomenal nominee, respected by all, top academic, good in every way, good in every way. In fact, some of her biggest endorsers are very liberal people from Notre Dame and other places. So I think she's going to be fantastic. We have plenty of time.
Attorney General Nessel, you have said the president appointing someone now will erode public trust in the court. Can you explain why?
Yeah, because I think that you absolutely cannot treat an African-American Democratic president any differently than you would treat a Caucasian Republican president. And that, in effect, is what we'd be doing. Obviously, we know that President Obama had his appointee to the Supreme Court, Merrick Garland, blocked by the Republicans. And it was very clear. I mean, Mitch McConnell was very clear in saying the reason was because it was during an election year. So for us to apply a completely separate and different set of rules to President Trump than we did to President Obama, I think significantly erodes confidence in the courts. And the thing is this, we know, of course, that in the legislature, we know that in our executive offices, obviously these are highly political positions. But the courts are not supposed to be politicized in the same way. They're supposed to be the arbiter of truth and justice and fairness, fundamental fairness. And when we politicize the courts in the way that they now have been, it erodes the trust of the public in our courts. And I don't know that we'll ever be able to get that back if President Trump proceeds and the Senate proceeds and, Ruth Bader Ginsburg's seat is filled right now. I think that will be the end of confidence that people in America have in the United States Supreme Court, perhaps for generations.
All right, Michigan Attorney General Dana Nessel, thank you so much for your time.
Thanks for having me.